I'm in India without a return ticket building an apparel brand. This is a day in my life.
Ashna Mankotia is a formal product manager turned content creator, community builder, and founder of the apparel brand Bazaar Customs. How much do you regret quitting your 9 to 5?
I don't regret it at all, but that doesn't mean that I don't miss it at all. I worked in tech for about 6 years. I got laid off like 10 days before my 30th birthday. In some ways, the layoff was a blessing. It pushed me to do something I would have a really, really hard time doing on my own.
What is up, and welcome back to The Time I Left My 9 to 5, a podcast where we uncover what really went on behind the scenes of people who took the leap, left behind stability, and built something of their own. In this episode, Ashna gets brutally honest about how a sudden layoff became the push that she needed to finally bet on herself. We dig into her roller coaster journey launching Saffron, a global community for women, only to realize she didn't want to turn it into a $1 million business.
From a business perspective, if I wanted this to become a $1 million business, I would have to scale to like 7,000 members. And I just thought, what is the breaking point of this still feeling like a community where women can get to know each other? I felt like I would lose the magic behind it. And I just could not find a way to work around that.
She opens up about the identity crisis she faced after ditching her corporate title, the guilt of quote-unquote free time as an entrepreneur, and why she's now in India sourcing fabrics for her apparel brand Bazaar Customs, a venture she calls tech-forward and deeply personal. But here is what you don't want to miss. Ashna doesn't sugarcoat the realities.
You have to keep that in mind, that it's going to be this long, long journey for you. It's like you're running a marathon. There's people cheering you on for the first 5K, and then you're doing the rest on your own.
She shares exactly how much she saved before quitting, why she turned down job offers post-layoff, and the raw reflection on who she would be if she had never left India as a child.
It feels like I've stepped into this like alternate universe. It's feeling like this could have been a home for me. You just kind of wonder who you would be if you never left that country.
Before we jump in, I would love if you could subscribe to the channel if you're watching this on YouTube, or rate the podcast if you're listening everywhere else. Your support truly means the world as I continue growing this podcast and bringing you more unfiltered, real conversations just like this one. Hi, Ashna. Thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast.
Excited to be here, Maggie.
So you're in India right now, right? Building your company Bazaar. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, yes, true and correct. Yeah, you're saying that right.
I've been obsessed with your TikTok account where you're taking us on a journey of you building. And I know this punchline that you have, I'm in India right now without a return ticket, which sounds super cool. But we'll dive into that a little bit more into the podcast. So to start, I ask every guest at the beginning of the podcast, from a scale of 0 to 10, how much do you regret quitting your 9 to 5? 0 being best decision of your life and 10 being disaster and regretting quitting your job.
I mean, 0, I don't regret it at all, but that doesn't mean that I don't miss it at all. So those are two different things to me. For this point in my life, I feel like it was a really good decision. Very happy with making it, but I do miss it a lot.
That's very interesting. Can you give us a quick overview of your journey from product management to launching your own community and then to building now your other adventure?
Sure. So, I mean, I have always been very entrepreneurial. I've always done something on the side. You know, when I was working in tech, I had an eyelash beauty brand at one point. I had a men's sock business at one point. I was always doing a little bit of freelance here and there, helping a small business with the website. And my kind of future vision for myself, I always saw myself one day as working for myself full time, but it just felt very kind of far in the distance. So, I mean, I've always been doing something on the side. Content creation was born out of COVID and really started taking it seriously in 2020. And I did it as a hobby. It wasn't something that I started as a side hustle. Like, I did not post my first video thinking, especially TikTok, you know, it was the early days of TikTok. Like, I truthfully didn't even consider that, oh, like I could make money off content, as I understood, you know, YouTube to be at that point as a place where people made money through social media. It was such early days of TikTok and I think short video content influencers. So yeah, I didn't start content as my goal was to become a content creator and influencer, but it happened on the side. So it's been so much fun. So I've been doing that for 5 years, and then I worked in tech for about 6 years before I was laid off. And then because I had a little bit of side income from content creation, I felt like I had enough. It wasn't that huge of a risk to, you know, not go back into looking for a job when I had some sources of income. So I just decided to take the leap when it was something I always wanted to do. Felt like, why not now?
Most content creators that I talk to actually started the same way. I find that super fascinating myself as well. It wasn't like you're starting out to make a business out of it. It's just because you genuinely want to share what you wanted to share at that moment. So when you started in 2020, you were still working at your product manager job. What kind of content were you posting then?
I was posting a lot of vlogs. I still post a lot of vlogs. It was very much just, I think, video diary. That's always been my style of content. My life, the things I've learned, what I'm doing. Again, I didn't start it as like a niche of a type of content because I wanted to grow in a certain area. I posted about finance. I posted about my relationship, moving into my own apartment, being a South Asian woman. Like it was like my Sephora haul. It was just whatever I wanted. I really treated it like a fun hobby, and it's still like a fun hobby to me. I say this all the time. I mean, I'm very lucky that I was able to build an audience at a time where it was, I think, a lot easier to grow on TikTok, especially that's where primarily my audience is. I've never really, and I still don't put a lot of strategies on to try to grow. Like my only thing, I think my biggest strategy that I've implemented is just being consistent and like consistently posting every week for 5 years. I think for my wedding, the week I got married, I didn't post for 7 days, but that's like the longest I've gone.
How often do you post per week? I'm curious.
There was a time where I was doing every single day and I was really good. That was probably like a couple years every single day. And then the most maybe I would go is skipping one day. Right now, being in India, it's been a little tough. And with travel and my wedding, it slowed down a little bit. But I don't go a week without posting at least 2 or 3 times. But that feels quite slow for me.
Yeah, I think people don't realize. I think I see those comments online still all the time that, content creators not a real job, influencers not a real job, but people don't realize how much work it actually is behind each video that creators put out. I do want to switch gear a little bit and talk about the layoff experience that you had from your 6 years of data management experience. When you were laid off, I don't know if are you comfortable talking to us a little bit more about kind of your experience being laid off, how you felt, and what was the circumstances around it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so I worked at a division of a company that was quite experimental. It wasn't really tied to the main business. So it was a media company building an education business, and the education side it was just not growing at the speed, and the business, I think, felt like it had kind of become a distraction, which objectively, like, I don't think, I can kind of see the reasoning behind it. I think there was definitely like, some traction happening and a pivot that the business had made. But I think the company was just like, we had done this education thing for a while. Let's just focus on the media side of the business. And like, I don't know, objectively, it wasn't like this came out of nowhere. I think there was always this risk with the type of work that I did at this company, but it was definitely hard. I remember it was like 10 days, like a week and a half before my 30th birthday. I was just about to turn 30, and it was this regular one-on-one, that had HR and the VP of product and then the other GM that I worked with. And I was like, "Oh, okay, this is happening." So it was a shock. I mean, it was really hard. I remember just thinking though, after like the shock wore off, I was like, "I'm glad this happened right before my birthday because I'm glad I was turning 30 with this clear idea of what this new chapter of my life I was starting was going to be." So I really appreciated how clean that felt.
And when you were laid off after, was there a specific moment when you realized you didn't want to return to a corporate environment, or did you kind of already know because your social media was taking off, that you wanted to step away?
So I got laid off technically right before I was turned 30, right? So I had told myself already in my head, I had said, before I turn 31, I want to work for myself. So this layoff had come, I think, a year before I was ready, or whatever this arbitrary timeline I'd given myself, right? So it just felt like, okay, well, what would I do now? Why would I get a job right now when I wanted to? This is coming a little sooner than maybe expected, but I can do this. And also, I got laid off in the beginning of 2024. I was getting married the summer of 2024, a week-long Indian wedding. I was planning on taking 3 weeks off for that wedding. And I was like, why would I start a new job to then take a month off? It just didn't really feel like it made sense. And I felt like I am very financially savvy. At the point that I was laid off, I had over 2 years of my salary saved, and I was just like, I felt like I was gonna be okay. Again, it's not to say that I was, like, fully confident 100% of the time, but in the conversation that I had with myself, I was like, "I'll be fine."
Yeah. Wow. That I can't imagine. Like, I just think that turning turning 30, at least for people in their 20s, they place so much importance into kind of that transition point. But sensing from this conversation is that like you don't stop figuring out life, right? When you turn 30, it's not just like a magical number and we're all still trying to figure things out. I think timing is everything in terms of that big pivotal moment leaving the corporate world behind. So you like you said, you have 2 years of salary saved, which probably was a huge deal, like, that's super impressive, and in kind of making that decision, leaving your 9 to 5 fully behind, the financial stability is a big piece of it. What other factors did you take into consideration when you chose to focus on building your own business?
The timing honestly was really big thing. It was kind of like, why go back now? I actually had interviews with a few companies and I got an offer at one and I decided not to take it. It just felt like this is a time to do it. So I treated really 2024 as like a gap year. I told myself, we'll see how this goes and maybe I'll go look for a job in 2025. So I remember being in my early 20s, starting my career and seeing people on LinkedIn. I remember this so vividly, seeing people on LinkedIn deciding to take time off before their quote unquote next adventure, you know? And I would always wonder when I was that young, like, how are people financially affording not to work for like 2, 3 months? Like, how is that possible? And I've been there. So it took many years of, saving and understanding my finances and getting to a place where I felt comfortable and, I don't 2024, I didn't earn as much as I earned in 2023 working full time, but I earned enough to, not have to dig into my savings. So I really consider that quite a big win. And I got married and I got to just take as much time off as I needed. So I felt like I wasn't ready when I was laid off, but I just felt like, okay, I have to get myself ready. This is something that you want in the future, but the future is right now. You're never going to feel 100% ready. I was making this amazing USD salary living in Canada. I had this really cool job at this cool New York City company. I would get flown to New York all the time. Like, I already had such a good life. It almost felt selfish to pursue full time working for myself, like as if I wanted more. So I think in some ways the layoff was a blessing of it pushed me to maybe do something I would have a really, really hard time doing on my own. I still don't know if I would. At one point what I would be like, okay, well, I think I'm just gonna work for myself now and give the salary up. It's hard. It's very, very hard to do that.
How long did it take you to make that mental transition from, not working your very amazing job to like fully accepting that this is my life now and I want to work for myself?
It was very hard to kind of adjust to this lifestyle of not working a 9 to 5, where a 9 to 5 gives you so much structure. It really gives your life a sense of productivity. No matter what you do every day when you go to work, you get paid. You go to a meeting, like, you feel like you did something. And when you work for yourself, there are a lot of days where you feel like, I made $0 today. I not sure if I even put some building blocks in to make some dollars like next week. It's a really like shift in how you think about your days. And it's also a big shift of how you identify. Like, it's hard. It was very easy for me to lead with saying my title as a senior product manager and then saying all the stuff I did on the side, because it was like this product manager job felt like it did have some like trust and people, it had a bit of prestige to it. But then saying that, I'm building a community for women, I'm a content creator, like that those were the two things I would say when I had first been laid off, right? So it was harder. It took a hit to my own sense of like, oh, I thought I was above all this, but maybe I'm not, because I'm having a hard time answering this question of what do I do? So that was a good like reality check just internally of like what I place to be valuable and how I see myself. Because you always think you're more than your job and your job doesn't define you until someone asks you to describe yourself or introduce yourself without mentioning your job at all. And then you realize that you really enjoyed having that as a crutch.
I relate to that so much. That's something that I really struggle with as well. Because when you go to like parties, gatherings, the first thing they always ask is, so what do you do? Or it always comes up somehow in the conversation. And how do you explain this shift to other people who may or may not be able to relate to what you're saying? So you mentioned the community that you were building when you sort of the first venture you worked on after you started working for yourself, and that was a community for women. And something that you mentioned that's very interesting to me as we're prepping for this podcast was that you found that that wasn't something you wanted to scale. It wasn't the business that you wanted to scale. And that's when you started pivoting to your current adventure with apparels. I would love to learn more about how you reached that point where you realize, oh, this is not something that I want to put like everything behind. And this is just still want to be a passion project of mine.
Yes, yes, happy to talk about that. So I started Saffron when I was still working full time. I started it very much as a passion project. I had just gotten signals from my audience, which is like 80% plus women, that a community for women, something like this would be of interest. So I did not start Saffron with a 5-year vision or a plan. I just kind of told myself, I will figure this out as I go. And I mean, I started it with a beta too, in true PM style. I started with a 3-month beta, had paid members at a lower price and got feedback and kind of really tried to understand if this was something that I felt like I could do. And the beta went so well, and there was just so much magic in the community each day. So I started to open up Saffron to other members. Right now we're at about 230 members ish in over 45 cities around the world. So it's a very, very cool group of women. And it's not some revolutionary concept. It's just this group of women all over the world who want to build community, want to build friendship locally and when they travel around the world. So I loved seeing all of that kind of magic happen, like all of those connections being made. And I just started to think more long term. I had been laid off from my job, and now my 2 side passion projects were my main sources of income. So I had a lot more capacity to think about them fully. And I started to think about Saffron I took myself out of it. I took the community element out of it. And I just thought about, or sorry, not the community element, but like my passion towards it out of it. And I just thought, from a business perspective, if I wanted this to become $1 million business, it would mean I would have to scale to like 7,000 members. And I just thought, could I do that? And it would still feel like a community. What is the breaking point of this still feeling like a community where women can get to know each other? It still feels small enough where, you're seeing the same women over the course of a year, like a couple times at events, that you're getting to know them. You're starting to recognize the faces on Slack. I just felt like when I think about a business to build, just purely for me, speaking for myself, if I would not put my life into building a business that I felt like did not have potential to become a $1 million business. Not to say, like, I think there's so much value in Saffron in the community, and I love doing it, and I hope to have this community for the rest of my life. But to grow it to a point that it would feel like a really successful large business to me, I felt like I would lose the magic behind it. And I just could not find a way to work around that. I just could not find a feasible way that I wanted to work around it. I really love how slowly Saffron is growing. Like, it's a lot of word of mouth at this point. I've never spent $1 on advertising. I just use my own, and I don't even go that hard on my own content. Like, if I really wanted to grow it like hard, I would post about it every day. I would post maybe about Saffron once a week, not even, just like, and it's not very addy. It's just, this is a book I'm reading for the Saffron book club, like things I would share normally. So I just decided that community was a business I did not want to scale. And I just started to think about, what are other areas of my life that I could build something that I felt like I could scale to, it would be possible for me to scale it to $1 million business. And that's how I started thinking about Bazaar.
I really love how you were thinking not even 1, 2, like 3, 100 steps ahead of yourself when you're thinking about, oh, this is my end goal that I want, make $1 million. And that's with the math. That's what it comes down to, 7,000 members. And that's not how big I want this community to grow. But like, in a sense, I do want it to grow that big, but also I want to keep it true to myself. I really love that for you. And so when you pivoted are you still doing Saffron, by the way, at the moment?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I hope to do it forever. There's so much value in community that like these 200 plus women have like brought to my life. Like, so many of them are close friends now, and just like great, amazing connections. And I think there's room for true community in the world. And I think it's nice to see there's a lot of discourse on like what true community is these days. I'm seeing, I don't know if that's just because I'm in the space, I see it all, but yeah, Saffron is not a money making venture for me, for sure. The membership fee is free after 3 years of membership. So I honestly want to get to a place, and I tell members this all the time, where there's maybe, I don't know, 500, 1,000 members, and we get to a point where everyone has paid. It's free for everyone, and it's just like this group of women around the world. And you're like, imagine being, I don't know, 65 and retired, and you just have this community of women all over the world that you know and that you've gotten to know your whole life, and or at least the half of your life, and you're just connected to so many people. So that's how I think about it. I really want to do it. Yeah, I'm still doing it, and I hope I will continue to do it. It's just not I don't think about it in the way of a business how I would think about a business.
I love that you mentioned true community. I think community is more of a focus now. It's like when you see, especially in content creation, when you kind of see people or growth experts, what they recommend, like how content creators are monetizing their audience. Community is always something that comes up along with like courses and PDF products. So, what does true community mean to you, and what have you done to foster that true community for people who might want to build their own community there?
Sure. I mean, so I started Saffron. One of the things I say is that as a content creator, I didn't have a community. I had an audience, because a community is a circular experience. It's a conversation back and forth. There's only so much community you can build through like the comments and interacting with your DMs. I love doing all that. Like I would think in my content, I have a relationship with my audience that's positive, but it's nowhere close to a relationship you can have with a community. And that was one of the reasons why I started Saffron. And what I like to say in Saffron is that community is very much about give and take. And I also really describe it as like a gym membership, where I say that when you join Saffron, it's like joining a gym. You're not going to, whatever goals you have for fitness, get stronger, build muscle, run faster. They're not going to happen overnight. And you're going to have to show up to gym sessions where it's uncomfortable and it's not fun, but you have to give it time. And if you show up long enough, you'll start to see the results of what you're looking for. So that's how I describe community, is that I think it's like, it's not just, big glamorous dinners with a bunch of girls in New York City. We've done that, and that's fun. But it's also, if someone is posting in the community that they need someone to review their resume, and it's a field that you're in, it's you taking the time, the 15 minutes, to write a thorough, piece of feedback on their problem, or giving them time to review their resume. That is what community is. It's really like being there for each other. And that is the part that I try to really like continue to discuss in Saffron. It's not going to be, through dinners and fun stuff that is solely what community is about. And I think a lot of people join communities and they think, and I say this when people are interested in joining Saffron, that a lot of people sometimes are just looking for events. You're not looking for a community, you're looking for something to do. And you will find things to do if you join Saffron, but it's not the sole purpose of what we're trying to do.
Love that. Let's talk about Bazaar. And it's quite a big shift, I think, from building a community to launching a clothing brand. To be honest, I know nothing about launching a clothing brand, but I've always been eyeing like, physical products. Like I think it's really cool. And I know you're in India right now without a return ticket. And I think you're looking at manufacturers and potentially getting all the back end sorted for your business. How is that going?
Yeah, it's going well. I mean, it's funny now to start talking about it, because this is something I've been working on for the last 10 months. I also, don't have any experience until now in apparel, and I have learned so much in the last 10 months, and I've really invested in a designer. She has over 15 years of experience, so she really understands the space. So we have been working together for the last 8 months. I've shared the concept with her, and then I just said, I was like, okay, I'm coming to India for my honeymoon after I traveled a little bit with my husband. I'm just going to stay there until we designed the collection while I was still in Canada, but I've been received samples and stuff. But then I said, okay, let's actually get full pieces manufactured and really like shoot it here and just make sure we're really good for launch. So I am keeping a lot of it kind of a surprise, but it's been an adventure, and it's been really fun to build something new in an area that I think there's a need. And I've definitely, used a lot of my tech background in this. I have hinted very little, but what I will say is that, the Instagram is Bazaar Customs, the URL is Bazaar Customs. So the word customs is a bit of a hint, and there's a lot of tech going in to that kind of custom component. So I'm very excited about it. I really feel like it's actually quite a tech forward apparel business. And yeah, it's really fun to kind of bridge a lot of these worlds of mine and interests of mine together.
You said in one of your social media videos that just a little bit background for the audience as well. So you live in Toronto, but right now you're in India, and I saw in one of your TikTok that you were born in India, but you moved to Toronto with your family when you were 4 years old, and that you're always wondering, would you be the same person if you grew up in India? And I find that self reflection very fascinating. I've always been thinking about that myself in a sense. Anyway, so can you elaborate more on kind of your experience finding yourself in the journey of, building your business and how, like, figuring out your life and it doesn't magically stop at the magic number 30. And I've listened from other podcasts, there's this concept of season of life and how now you're moving into a different season of your life and how you're trying to figure what that means to you and how you finding your roots.
Yeah, sure. So yes, I was born in India, left when I was 4, have like no memories really of growing up in India. And I had only been back to India twice. Once was for a wedding, once I was quite young. So I never traveled India as an adult until now. And neither has my husband. So that was a big reason we wanted to do our honeymoon, a big trip to India, like really see it and travel through it as adults. And I think a lot of immigrants, first gen, you just kind of wonder who you would be if you never left that country. And I did. I have my whole life. And I think it's because India felt like this foreign, very foreign country that I had no connection to. Being in India as this adult now, this fully grown woman, and living these days that feel so parallel to the life that I live in Toronto, it's so cool. Like, I don't even know how else to articulate it, but it feels like this is this other version of me in this life that could have existed. And this is maybe silly to some people, but I really believe in like the butterfly effect, or I kind of in my head have this idea that there's every decision you make, there's another universe where you made the other decision. There's just like a million universes, trillions of universes out there where every version of what decision you've made, like you went to a different university, like your second choice university, or you ended up not dating your now husband or whatever. Like there's just all these universes that exist. So for me, I've been in India for a month now. I'll probably be here for at least another month. Living in India, it feels like I've stepped into this like alternate universe that exists somewhere. And I think that part is very cool. Like that part feeling like this could have been my life. And just realizing that I could build a life here if I wanted to, like feeling like I'm not in this foreign country on a trip. It's feeling like this could have been a home for me. So that part has been quite magical. Yeah, so I really, really enjoyed it. I don't know how else to really like describe it. It's such a strange, specific feeling. I think so much of like who you are, of course, depends on your circumstances. And I don't think that I would be the exact same person, 100% carbon copy if I'd grown up in India. But I feel like at 31, I've gotten to know myself to a point where I think I would be mostly the same, like maybe I would have an Indian accent, like I'd sound different, but I don't think I would be deep down too different, which makes me feel like I've gotten to a point where I've really gotten to know myself. You never know yourself 100%, but I think I know myself pretty well.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is also your sense of self is not pure defined by time, but it's also defined by what kind of experiences that you did. What situation did you put yourself into? Did you step out of your comfort zone often? Did you try different things? And that's how you sort of gather different pieces of you. And I really love to hear that, like how you're reflecting on that and how you felt like you really have a good sense of who you are. I do still want to talk more about like Bazaar. I know you don't want to give away too much. So without giving away too much of what your apparel business is exactly about, what are some of the challenges that you have come across so far?
Sure. Yeah, no, happy to talk about that. I mean, I have only ever done tech-based businesses. The cost of Saffron, there actually is a cost. I think some people think it's like a free to run a community. There's like hundreds of dollars in like online fees and payments and stuff every month that, I pay to run this community, but it's significantly low running like an online business compared to a physical product. I have never put so much capital down, and I've never invested, I've hired like a freelance designer who works like, and I'm her biggest project. So, it's like a big chunk of my budget every month is paying her and investing in her before, it'll be a while before I get and again, it's a little funny to talk about people just in numbers, but just taking, the people element out of it to get my return on this investment of when I'm paying her, what I've put down on sampling and products. It's so expensive to start a physical product. You really have to believe in it. And like things go wrong, like samples turn out wrong or colors don't turn out right and the lining doesn't work or someone ends up taking one of your products by mistake at the shop. Like all that's happened. And you just kind of have to take it by stride. I've tried to, as a PM, it's all about being lean and blah, blah, blah. It's like feel fast, do things quickly. And it's like, yes, of course. So I've tried to, of course, do that as much as you can. But at the end of the day, an apparel business is apparel and it's expensive to produce. So it really requires a lot of belief in the concept. And that's been hard. I think also being very transparent and just like my own personality. I know that I'm very good at building and I'm less good at, I think, the slow growth. At least, I don't know, in some ways I think I'm okay and good at that. In some ways, at least I've just told myself with this like apparel business to build a brand, like it's gonna take years. And it's very exciting when you're saying you're building something and it's new. And I've put enough out there to recognize this. Like I'm very lucky to have like a community of primarily women in my audience, like on social media, that are very excited for me. And I know that they are. Like, that's not fake feelings. But the reality of launching anything is that a year, 2 years from now, like, I will still be doing this work. And that glowing sense of, I'm so excited for you. Like, this is so cool. That is going to fade. And I am old enough to know I've done enough things and I've had enough experience to know that you have to keep that in mind, that it's going to be this long, long journey for you. It's like you're running a marathon where there's people cheering you on for the first 5K. And then you're doing the rest on your own. And maybe there'll be one or two people kind of along the way, but that big crowd of people kind of stop. So that is something I just, I have the experience now to just keep that in mind.
It kind of aligns with what I've been hearing. It's like motivation is not gonna get you there, but discipline will. So what's keeping you going at this point?
I feel very lucky that I was able to now work 13 months on my own at this point in time. At this time of this recording, it's been 13 months since I have, been able to be my own boss. And that is such a blessing, like something as hard as it is and et cetera, it's like, it very much is also a blessing. So it just feels like, I've been given all this freedom to build this life that I want to. And I think that's like the motivation, right? It's like you can build whatever you want in your life. And I feel like I'm kind of on the path to do that. So, it feels like sky's the limit right now for me. So I'm just trying to figure out how to get to the sky.
For somebody who is maybe thinking about leaving their 9 to 5 or completely working for themselves, and whether it's building a physical brand or a online brand, what are some of the advice that you could offer to those people?
So for me, I would never have left my 9 to 5 unless I had some source of income coming in. I mean, I think there are some people who are maybe want to go move in back home with their parents and take no expenses and like live that life. And I mean, all the power to them. But I just very personally for me, like my advice, I think it's quite isolating already to build something from scratch. Even if you go find like a service job, like no shame in that. Like serve once a week at a cafe or at a restaurant, like have some income coming in, as especially when you work a 9 to 5, you are wired in this way where it really will help bring some structure and income into your life. And actually like having structure really helps you. Like constraints are actually really great construction blocks for building anything. I felt like I needed more structure in my day to day. So I started doing morning workout classes almost every day. And I would say, okay, this is how I'm going to start my day. I'm going to get out of my home, So I would just say whether it's a job or whether it's like workout classes, I would really find a way to find structure. Again, I think some income coming in from something will really do a lot to just for your own sense of moving, like you're moving forward. It doesn't have to be quote unquote something of like value in your field to help you get to your business. And every job has value. And what I'm saying is, but perhaps serving at a coffee shop is not going to exactly equal value to a consulting business that you want to build. But it could actually, I don't know, you could find there's parallels you can draw and things you could learn from anything. But I think just finding structure, being able to have some income through some source will do so much for just your own emotional well-being. And also, I think one of the greatest privileges of not having a 9 to 5 is the amount of time that your brain has to just wander and think. I did not have the idea for Bazaar while I was working my 9 to 5. And I don't know if I would have. I truly think it was all this extra room in my brain. I had so much more room for these thoughts to marinate and ideas to come that's where this concept of Bazaar was born, and it is such a privilege to have that extra room in your brain. So really try to use it, like try to take advantage of it. I started what I told myself was going to be 1 year gap year of just figuring things out. I went into it that way. I went into it saying, okay, I have content creation, I have Saffron, but what else do I want to do? Is there going to be something else? Let me just take this year to figure it out. So I would also say give yourself the space and room to do that. Give yourself at least that first 6 months or first year to just have room to grow.
I resonate with that so much, like, especially when you say you have the brain power, like, finally to think about all these kind of things. One of the biggest realization I had, like, last year in 2024 was that people always say you need to manage time, like, your time is the most scarce resource, but, what I've come to realize is that actually energy is the most scarce resource because you have a finite amount of time per day, but really, if you're working a 9 to 5 even, are you really being productive from 9 to 5? Or are you actually have those core hours of 3 to 4 hours where you're pushing most of your work and getting a lot of things done. So I feel like not having that 9 to 5 being chained to a desk, being sort of constantly have to think about, oh, what am I gonna talk about in this meeting? How am I gonna solve this conflict? And now you have all of this time to just think. And I think you also have to allow yourself to really think outside of the box and have experiences. And like you said, it's an isolating experience. That's a lot of time what I felt as well, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs have that isolating period before, they sort of quote unquote made it, and then now all of the people who were cheering on is coming back, and but there is that period where you're kind of doing this on your own, you're putting your heads down work. And for the part where you said about structuring your day, I don't know if you feel the same way. I felt like when I first left my 9 to 5, I kind of thought I was still putting myself in the mindset of a 9 to 5. Like, I'm trying to work between the hours of 9 to 5 and trying to have time at night for my partner who is working a 9 to 5 and try to still have that time together. But really, like, I find myself working best at night. And there's that shift as well with people around you where you kind of have to sacrifice some things and work with them on other things that allowing yourself to work the best hours that's for you. Like, I know somebody who left their 9 to 5 and they're staying up until, 2 in the morning to work, and then they don't get up until 10 in the morning, which is completely okay, but I didn't give myself permission to feel okay doing that. What was your experience on that? Did you have, like, similar experience at all?
I did, and I mean, I am a morning person, sorry, so I I do well in the morning and I like working kind of early in the day, but in that same theme, I definitely had, I think, a lot of, like, guilt about being free at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was just like, "Well, here I am getting my nails done in the middle of the day, like, I just have such an easy life. It's like everyone else who's doing something with their lives is working and I'm free." So I think just it was a shift. And sometimes it's still something that I think I allow myself to be like the butt of jokes, even with my friends, where I'm trying to stop. Just like, yeah, I'm free all the time. Like, I don't have a job. I don't do anything. And I just like, I've gotten better. But in the beginning, especially, I would just be like, oh, yeah, my friend was one of my good friends was on mat leave. I was like, yeah, I'm on mat leave too. It's just like this joke that I was like, not doing anything. Not to say mat leave isn't doing anything, but you know what I mean? So, I went out to dinner with one of my really good friends and she said something to me that I really needed to hear. She said how, I really admire this risk that you're taking, that you are really going for it. You're just like figuring it out and you're doing this on your own. I think I really needed to hear that because I had realized that yes, I have so much flexibility in my life, but it comes at a cost. It comes at a big risk. I have just realized that flexibility is one of the perks of this lifestyle, this job that you've chosen of to try to do 3, 4 jobs to make a full-time living, you know what I mean? So for me, that was a really nice thing to hear, and it stopped helped me really honestly stop feeling so guilty for being free on 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. There are weeks where I work probably 30 hours, but then there's a lot of weeks where I work 60, and I think it all evens out. So, yeah, I think it's just building your new normal takes time when we live in this world where 9 to 5 is the normal.
Yeah, I definitely have that guilt as well. And I think we need to define our own success so that when we reach that milestone or KPI, or however they call it in the corporate world, then, like, we are our own boss and we've done it. And to end that on this very positive note, thank you so much, Ashna, for joining us today and offering all of your super valuable advice. And if anybody out there wants to follow along on Ashna's journey, she's on Instagram and TikTok. Oh my gosh, Ashna, love that. Love that handle for you, and also Bazaar Custom for everything else.
Thank you. Thanks so much. This was so fun.
Thank you.